Hi there, I'm Neil, also known as the Hairy Man, and in this video I'm going to continue with speaking about my holiday to the United States. And this is about my stay at Pop Century and covers my experiences at the first of the 4 Disney parks and what was the major reason for my visit, Hollywood Studios. So right from the start I got dropped off outside the main entrance of Pop Century that Disney call the Classic Hall. You go inside to a very large airy hall with a long check-in desk, and staff there were at the time still observing the mask wearing protocols and calling people to check up individually. Now they do have an option where you can do an online check-in on your phone and open your door with your phone, but I wasn't 100% sure that my United States SIM card was working and I wanted to check in person. It was incredibly smooth, just using my booking reference number, and they managed to give me the exact room that I wanted, ground floor in the 70s section. Cast member provided me with a paper map and highlighted where I would be staying and answered a couple of questions I had about getting hold of magic bands. So I walked about 200 metres through the Classic Hall and through the themed areas of the resort and found my room. As I said before, I wasn't looking for a high-end room as I wasn't anticipating spending a lot of time there. I did end up spending more time there because I'm not as fit as I should be, and my feet kept telling me you've walked too much, so I did spend a bit more time in the room than I thought I was going to. The room itself was clean, spacious for someone travelling solo, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for more than two people who are sharing a bed. So it would be good for a single or a couple, because if you want to get the full 4 adult occupancy, then you have to use a pull down bed, so you lose the table and you then have a couple of chairs floating around taking up more of the what is now very limited floor space. Surprisingly, feature wise, I felt this was probably the best of the 3 hotels that I stayed in, and that was even better than the luxury brand Hard Rock Hotel. So I'll just run down the features that I got with the room. There's coffee machine with hot drinks from the Disney branded coffee range and the Joffrey's decaf, along with Twinings tea, long life milk and sugar and sweeteners. They left disposable cups with the takeaway style lids. There's a mini fridge which was fairly decent sized, but no freezer, so I wouldn't be saving any ice cream for later. There's a huge 55-inch TV, and this was the only one of the 3 hotels that I could actually stream to wirelessly. I mean, to be fair, I only streamed an episode of Critical Role onto it, and for the rest of the time I just had the Disney Info channel on. The safe in the room was generously sized and it fitted my 17-inch laptop, my bridge camera and all my other electronics and valuables. It was very simple to operate and I never had any issues with it. Bed was comfortable and had the world's supply of pillows on it, as it also had the pillows that would have been for the second fold-out bed as well. Now, as a Brit, I'm used to sleeping under a duvet, but the thinner sheet and blanket combination was probably a better choice in the Florida heat. I spent probably more time sleeping on top of the covers than I did underneath them. I did notice, however, that the mattress just sits on top of a flat platform, so I did have to push it back onto the frame a couple of times. Bathroom area was very well stocked with towels, face cloths and toiletries that were in the new, more environmentally friendly option of refillable pump dispensers. There was a large, well-lit main mirror and a separately lit makeup or shaving mirror that had a magnifying side on the swivel arm. So that was really good for when I put my contacts in. They also include an iron, an ironing board, hairdryer, and the shower is large with a rainfall and a standard head attachment. Actually, possibly the best shower that I've ever used. Really relaxing after a long day at the park. I would have liked a tub so that I could soak my feet, but you can't have it all. So I put up the ironing board for a little bit more sort of like table space, and my cases fit easily underneath the bed in the storage areas. Once I got settled in, I made a quick trip to the shopping area that is called Everything Pop, to purchase what I consider to be the best buys for a Disney vacation. So one of them is a Magic Band, which is basically an RFID chip that you can use as a park ticket. I'll stick a picture up here. And it also works as a room key, and it works if you link it up as your credit or debit card. Now the other item is a resort mug, which gives you unlimited refills of non-alcoholic drinks in the restaurant area of the resort. Now, as I wasn't more than 100 metres from the main hall, this was great, and it saved me a lot of money on drinks. I mean, particularly if you're like me and you don't really drink a lot of alcohol. It was good. I could just go have a couple of drinks after I got back from the park, and then take the full mug back to my room. Now, having got those purchases out of the way, I caught my first Disney bus to the Disney Springs shopping area to start on the all-important souvenir shopping and get a bite to eat. Now, buses have been one of the mainstays of Disney World transportation from the get-go, and they run on a regular basis with very good information. There were large screens that were showing all of the destinations of the buses and what the next estimated time of arrival for the next bus was. They've got large fans running, and I was never waiting for more than about 15 minutes tops. Now, the buses will load any wheelchair users in first, which is normally 2 per bus. Then they'll board any other passengers until either the bus reaches capacity or everyone waiting is on board. When the bus is filled capacity, and if you're seating, that's a lot of butt in the face. And if you're standing, it's going to be a lot of grabbing handrails. Rides are fairly short, I think about 15 minutes tops, to some of the sort of like further away parks. But obviously it's dependent on traffic. And, you know, if you're standing after having a long day at the park, it's probably not the best in stop-start traffic. But anyone who's ridden public transport in a large metropolitan area is going to be used to this. And the buses even have Wi-Fi, which was really cool. So, Disney Springs is sort of like the shopping leisure area for the Disney resorts. And you don't need a ticket to go there. So I'm going to compress my 2 or 3 visits into one. So there's a lot of shops, but you're looking at more high-end outlets and quite a lot of it in the way of clothing brands, along with Disney shops and some shops themed to some particular properties. So, for example, they've got a store dedicated to Marvel, and they've got a couple of Star Wars shops and some more general Disney stores. So, being the Star Wars fan that I am, I headed directly for the Star Wars themed shops, which are the Galactic Outpost and the Trading Post. And while I was there, I managed to snag some of the merchandise that I had already decided I was after before I'd even got on the plane. And it meant that I didn't have to carry stuff when I was around the parks in Galaxy's Edge. Although you can have your purchases either sent to your hotel or sent to the front of the park for you to pick up later. But I basically just wanted it now. So I grabbed a first order jacket and hat, a Resistance jacket, a Rebel poncho, some of these thermal detonator soft drinks, a protocol droid hand that you can have holding a photograph or your phone, and some patches to sew on the jacket that I was taking to the parks. Now, there's also a wide variety of eating, drinking, and entertainment at Disney Springs. I didn't get to sample a lot of it, but I did go to a couple of places. I went to Chicken Guy, and the food there was really good. I got the chicken strips with the teriyaki dip, garlic mayo dip, and seasoned fries. I really enjoyed them. Very nice very nice flavour, and really good dips. I'm not very adventurous palate, so I didn't go for any of the really spicy flavours, but it was probably one of the best sort of like chicken tenders is I believe the American phrase is, and it's certainly some of the best I've had from fast food style dining. The other place that I went to was Gideon's Bakehouse, which is famous for not only its cookies but for its gothic aesthetic. I'll put a picture up, but if I was asked to describe it, I would say it would be what happened if Tim Burton purchased a library of an old Victorian house and decided to hold a bake sale there. The cookies are pretty big, and the salted choc chip ones I had were really delicious, and I didn't have much more than a 10-15 minute wait there, not the huge waits that I've seen in sort of like videos on YouTube. So it's definitely when you go there. And there's a lot more at Disney Springs than the time I had to interact with. They've got Cirque du Soleil Drawn to Life show there. They have got cinema, bowling, there's a lot of bars, some nightlife, and a static hot air balloon which gives apparently really good views over the Disney area. So it's more than just a shopping centre. So to go on to my experiences at Hollywood Studios, which is one of the 4 parks at Disney World, although you could say there are more because there are 2 water parks also, but only one of these water parks was open during the time I was there. Hollywood Studios, it started out life as Disney MGM Hollywood Studios and was designed to emulate the classic era of Hollywood films, but it's evolved into sort of like some separate areas that are based on Disney intellectual properties such as Star Wars and Toy Story. And I think originally they opened it because they wanted something to compete with Universal Studios, and I believe they did get MGM Hollywood Studios open a little bit before Universal all managed to open. Now, going there that was my first full day at Disney, and it started really early with getting onto the Skyliner. Now, I'm a real fan of this method of transportation, and I'm very conscious that I had very good luck on this trip, as there was only one instance of it being down for weather. The thing that appeals to me about it was that for the most part there was not any waiting to get on. No, you just rock up and load into the cabin, unless it's like a really busy period like when they first open or when the parks are chucking out. Also, there was no having to stand because you're always seated, and apart from the most busy times, as a solo traveller, I got a cabin to myself. To get to any of the parks, you do have, from Pop Century, you do have to change at the Caribbean Beach Resort. Now, that wasn't much of a problem to me, and I got to Hollywood Studios in good time, and I got some really nice views on the way. Now, I realise this is not for everyone. If you're afraid of heights, probably don't want to do it, but I believe that there are other methods of getting there, and Disney will accommodate you if you do have a fear of heights. So, arriving at the park, you pass through security before you get to the park entrance itself. And I remember being there on the first day just before 7 o'clock and frantically being on my phone trying to get a Lightning Lane for Rise of the Resistance. So speaking of Lightning Lane, while I was there I never actually used the full Lightning Lane package. I just used it 3 times to buy individual Lightning Lanes for Rise of the Resistance, as that was a must do for me. So once you get inside, you're pretty much immediately on the main shopping street that that sort of like goes down straight, with a replica of the Man's Chinese Theatre at the end that houses the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway ride. Now, if you're there for park opening, there are probably 3 places you're going to want to head. First one is Tower of Terror, second is Slinky Dog Dash, and obviously Rise of the Resistance, as these are the big 3 draws in this park. So going slightly out of the chronological order there, I'm going to start off with when I went to the Tower of Terror. And I got to ride that a couple of times over my trip. It's kind of an unusual intellectual property to use, bearing in mind that most people who are at Disney probably weren't even born when the Twilight Zone was on the air. Now, the theming of the ride, the portion of it that's supposed to look like a hotel, it's really well done. It just looks like a neglected, deserted hotel lobby covered in cobwebs, and wouldn't look out of place in an H.P. Lovecraft story. And the queue takes you through a deliberately kind of creepy, dimly lit boiler room, and imparts the story of the hotel being struck by lightning and dropping an elevator full of people to their doom. So you get into what they describe as a service elevator, and they strap you in and you ride up, and then you're moved to the drop tower part of the ride. There's some Pepper's ghost effects of the victims of the accident, and then there's a few moments of suspense, and then whoosh, there's the drop. Now, the drop is randomised, so you won't get the same pattern of ups and downs every time. The ride also assists gravity when it's pushing you down, so you're going faster than gravity alone, and you certainly get a fair bit of airtime. By which I mean you're sort of like out of your seat and you're only really held in by the restraints. And there are parts of it where you can actually see outside of the tower, so you can see really lovely view over the park, if only briefly before it drops you down again. So moving on to another of the rides in this particular area of the park, just round the corner from the Tower of Terror, it's another fairly odd IP. It's Rock and Roller Coaster featuring Aerosmith. Now, I'm led to believe that originally Disney wanted this to be the Rolling Stones, but apparently they were too expensive, so the Toxic Twins from Boston were recruited, and arguably this is the most extreme coaster in Disney, as it's the only one in Disney that is going to invert you, which it does 3 times to be precise. Now, I have to admit, this was the only coaster that I took my glasses off for. I didn't realise it was how extreme it was going to be. So it started off, and then when I realised quite what was happening, I just took my glasses off and held them in my hands. And for the rest of the ride, it was fairly intense, and it does shake you about a bit, more roughly than some of the more extreme coasters at Universal. And I thought it was very short for the time that I was on the ride versus the amount of time I was queuing. You do get some Aerosmith music pumped through the speakers on the ride vehicle, but I found I couldn't hear it much over the noise of the ride itself. So once I got through there, I would go to Toy Story Land, which is really one of the things that Disney does really well. Their theming is impeccable. Choice of vegetation, it's designed to work with the ride designs and the decoration to make you feel like you've been shrunk down to the size of a toy, and you're in Andy's back garden walking between toy boxes, toys, and things that Andy has set up. Now, the centrepiece of this is the Slinky Dog Dash coaster. This is a reasonably tame coaster, but it's got really, really good theming, and it is one that I recommend doing first thing as the queues get pretty long for this. It's a great frontal ride, and I would say that if you like coasters, this is a must do in Hollywood Studios. Less so than the other rides in the area. Aliens Swirling Saucers, I can take it or leave it. It's kind of a re-themed teacup ride. And Toy Story Midway Mania is a combination, kind of a dark ride and 3D screens with a shooting game element. And I think this would be much more fun if you're not on your own, because you can get a competitive element going with the people that you're riding with, more so than if you're solo and you're just putting a vehicle on your own. So we come to the element of the parks that is probably more than 50% of why I went in the first place. This is Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It's a highly themed area of the park. It's based on this Star Wars franchise. So it's so heavily themed that the cast members are in character all the time and don't acknowledge that they're actually in a Florida theme park. The language is different, so hello is bright suns, and the bathrooms are freshers, dollars are credits, and there are characters from the films and wider media walking around and interacting with the public. Now, the land has only got 2 rides at the moment. Rise of the Resistance, which is currently the most popular ride in Hollywood studios, and probably in all of the parks, probably only recently eclipsed by the new Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind coaster. And the second ride is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, which is a flight sim style 6-person capacity ride. Right, so I'll look at Smuggler's Run first. This was the first ride that I took on the holiday, and it was not disappointing. Walking into the area the ride is situated in, you come face to face with a full-sized replica of the Millennium Falcon. Now, as a 7-year-old kid, when Star Wars first came out, I was blown away by the film, and I've been a massive fan ever since. And after 45 years, to see such an iconic part of the film close up was a surreal experience. Going through the themed queue, getting to walk into the interior and sit at the hollow chess table. Yeah, I know it's called the Jellic or something I can't pronounce. And then finally to get in the cockpit. I didn't even care that I was an engineer, which is arguably the worst role to get. I will say I do dislike this ride with young children doing the piloting when they've got no idea of what they're supposed to do, and you just end up getting thrown about because they keep crashing the Falcon into everything. Unpopular opinion, but it's easier for them to grasp the other roles where the brief is literally, as I put it, if it flashes, you smashes.
Now, after my modest profit, your cut minus what you owe me for damaging the Falcon is... Ooh, that is rough.
I came back to this ride on subsequent visits to the park, and I used the single rider line repeatedly, and it was a virtual walk-on every time. And as usual, you get the engineer role virtually every time, except for that one time where I got a childhood dream come true. I sat in Chewie's seat and I got to throw the lever to take the Falcon to light speed. With the right crew, this can be amazing. But if you get some people who don't understand the instructions or just think it's like a traditional ride that you sit on and passively consume, it can be sometimes a frustrating experience. So, let's move on to the big one. The set piece, the most technologically advanced ride in the park, Rise of the Resistance. The individual lightning lane queues, in my view, were well worth the £15 that I spent. And as the wait time is dramatically reduced compared to the 2-hour plus waits that it was getting up to. I mean, particularly on May the 4th, it was just forget about it. This ride is a combination of screen projection, interactive theatre, trackless vehicle and a drop tower. So you start out in the briefing room and you get told by a hollow projection of Rey that you need to get off the planet to a new Resistance base, and you get walked out to a transport ship that's piloted by Nien Nunb with Lieutenant Bek, who's a Mon Calamari. You're escorted off planet by Poe Dameron and some other X-Wing pilots, and you leave Batuu and you immediately come under attack by the First Order. Now, while you're in this part of the ride, don't forget to look all around you, because the different screens at the front and the back and on the wall-mounted screens, you'll see different perspectives of the same thing. And as you're getting tractor beamed into the Star Destroyer, and you leave your vehicle into a huge room with platoons of stormtroopers, full-size TIE fighters, and cast members playing the parts of First Order officers. I'll say right here and now that these guys are amazing to interact with, and they're really good improvisers when you bounce off them and you stay in character. I got some really good lines out of them, my favourite being, "Keep an eye on the one with a face like a Wookiee." Thanks for that. So, taken into a cell, or you'll get broken out by some Resistance double agents, and you're like about halfway through the experience, and you're only at this point buckling yourself into the ride vehicle. So the ride vehicle takes you through a kind of a highlight reel of what are the things you would most want to see if you were on an Imperial or a First Order Star Destroyer, and you get them. Probe droids, stormtroopers, and not one but two full-sized AT-AT walkers. As you get blaster fire going over your head, and then your vehicle pulls you onto the bridge, and you see General Hux and Kylo Ren reacting to your escape and the sudden Resistance attack, and you back out of there, and you're being chased by Kylo Ren with some amazing visual effects, like the saber cutting through the ceiling, and then you'll come face to face with Kylo, and he nearly gets sucked out through a hole that's been blasted in the side of the ship. Or you will do if that part is functioning. 2 out of the 3 times I rode it, it was in what they call B mode, where we encountered him as a projection of a TIE fighter flying outside the ship. You get loaded into an escape pod, and you get the mini drop tower experience, and so with screen projections in front of you, so it looks like you're basically in an escape pod going back down onto the planet. And then the ride vehicle drives you out to the exit of the ride. Now, in my view, this is a proper and innovative use of trackless ride vehicles, and doesn't rely on 3D projection as much like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure over in Epcot, or the other trackless ride in the park, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which I think is a waste of trackless vehicle, and it just feels like a traditional dark ride. Now, one of the main criticisms that people give about Galaxy's Edge is it's only 2 rides and the rest is a glorified gift shop, and I can agree with that to some extent. However, the land is so beautifully realised that, if you squint and you ignore the other tourists and the Mickey ears and the strollers, you are in a galaxy far, far away. Basically, because your senses are bombarded with information. You can smell the roasting meats. You can hear the sounds of animals that are just off stage in the bushes. You can see the amazingly set-dressed buildings and the landscaping. Feel the used universe as textures. It's like on the floor, it's got the droid tracks and chipped paintwork on the crates that are just sort of like randomly sitting around but are intentionally designed to work as seating. You can taste the unique flavours that were designed for the world, like the Ronto sausage, the Outpost mixed popcorn, and the blue and green milk. And so on to the actual shopping experience. They're roughly divided by theme. So you have First Order Cargo, which sells all of your First Order and baddie merchandise. You've got the Creature Store that has got your plushies and your creature themed stuff. Ever wanted a Kowakian monkey lizard like Salacious Crumb to sit on your shoulder? They got you. Toydarian Toymaker makes these pseudo-primitive dolls and other things designed to the Star Wars universe. If you think of the Trooper doll that Jyn Erso plays with in Rogue One, there's a lot of stuff like that. You've got a couple of different kinds of clothing store. You've got your in-universe clothing of Black Spire Outfitters, which if you want to get yourself fitted out in Jedi robes, that's the place to go. There are other places doing in-universe stuff. And then you've also got Jewels of Bith, which is much more of a sort of like in-universe souvenir shop, and that's where you'll get your more traditional, or someone went to Batu and all I got was this lousy t-shirt kind of thing. And so that does your t-shirts and your hats and stuff, but you will notice that none of them are branded with Star Wars or Galaxy's Edge. It's all branded as Black Spire Outpost to keep everything in universe. You go over to near the Rise of the Resistance, they've got Resistance supplied. It's tucked away, it looks a bit more furtive than overt, as if they're not trying to advertise their presence to the First Order. They've got a mixture of Resistance themed gear. It's got the flight helmets and replicas of Han Solo's shirt and vest. The large shop in the area is Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities. Now it sells a mix of some in-universe clothing and some accessories, some in the more pricey range, and more importantly, Jedi and Sith equipment. Now you can purchase a holocron. Now they're a kind of a cross between a Magic 8 Ball and a Rubik Cube. You manipulate them and recordings of famous light and dark side force users will play. Who speaks is determined really by the kind of kyber crystal that you place inside them, also sold separately. More about those later. You can also purchase a number of legacy lightsabers, which are copies of those used in the films, TV shows and video games, like this one here, which is a copy of the Cal Kestis lightsaber from the video games. Now, these are hefty. I mean, they've got real weight to them, feel really good in the hand. And it's not all about merch in the shop. It's richly decorated. They've got all kinds of Star Wars props and up on the walls and on the balconies. Like, they've got severed heads of creatures. There's like a stuffed wampa, and the highlight itself is Doc Ondar. It's a fantastically detailed animatronic of an Ithlorian or Hammerhead shopkeeper going about his business, counting his credits and monitoring his stock behind his counter. They've got two interactive experiences in Galaxy's Edge. There is the Droid Depot, or Depot depending on your pronunciation, where you can build yourself a remote control, either an R2 or a BB series droid, from a selection of parts, and then you can personalise it with different panels or colours and personality chips, which slot in, and they can alter the sound and sometimes the behaviour of the droid. Now this is something that I didn't do, as I've only got so much cash and I've only got so much room in my suitcase, but I did do the one next door, which is Savi's Workshop Custom Lightsabers, which allows you to build your own custom saber. You get to choose from 4 different styles of saber. You've got Peace and Justice, Protection and Defence, Elemental Nature, and the one that I chose, because I lean a little bit more towards the bad guys, is Power and Control. Oh, and it's a set of things that literally screw together on a haft. So you get to choose from 2 different styles of each of the parts and 4 different colours of kyber crystals. Now I said we get back to this. Now the colour of the kyber crystal determines the colour of the blade. So these are some kyber crystals. Also, you've got emitters, switches, top sleeve, bottom sleeve and end cap. Now there's 2 different choices of each of those parts, and if you include the crystals, I think it's something like 1,536 different combos of saber that you can make. That's not including the other colours of crystal that you can get at Doc Ondar's, and different blade lengths or end caps, also sold separately at the creature shop, like this one that I bought, which is in the shape of a Rancor head. Again, this experience works best if you buy into the in-world elements and you role play along with the cast members. Now, food-wise, in Galaxy's Edge, there are a few options. You've got two fast food style places. You have Docking Bay 7 Food and Cargo, which serves a variety of dishes themed to the setting. So it's basically twists on foods that exist on Earth, but they've been renamed aimed to make them seem more out of universe. And you also have Ronto Roasters, which offers a more limited menu, but it's basically just filled wraps with either a meat or a vegan option. You've got Katsaka's Kettle, which provides popcorn, and several droid carts that are selling the Coke products in the thermal detonator shaped bottles. So last and by no means least is Ogre's Cantina. If you've ever wanted to drink in a bar like the famous Tatooine Cantina, this is the nearest you're going to get. It's a dark, atmospheric drinking establishment serving beverages from around the galaxy with a soundtrack provided by DJ Rex, who's the same inept robot pilot that used to fly the Star Tours ride. Drinks are superbly themed and presented and really well presented. If they're a little bit on the pricey side, don't forget to keep your coasters, as they can go for up to £15 for a full set online. And some drinks will even come in a commemorative mug like this one. So this is like a tiki mug that comes with the Yub Nub drink, and they also have another one shaped like a porg for the Cliff Dweller drinks. And there's a set of Rancor teeth for the beer flight. Now, while you're around this area of the park, there's a number of Disney photographers, and it's well worth getting them to take some amazing pictures. Now, you'll have seen some of them during this video, and you'll probably see some more as a montage. And it's worth getting the memory maker or getting a package that includes it, particularly if you're travelling in solo. I mean, I found that was one of the better ways to get photographs of myself in the parks. So moving out of the Galaxy's Edge area, there's still one more Star Wars themed ride I had to get to, which is Star Tours. This is a flight sim 3D glasses ride with a randomised programme. Sends you to different parts of the Star Wars universe. It's a lot of fun, and the random element makes it really good for re-riding. And the weight's never outrageous, but because it's a 3D screen based ride, it can cause motion sickness in some people. One of the things that I forgot about is the malfunction on Rise of the Resistance. So on May the 4th, possibly the most important day for Star Wars fans, and I got on and they weren't taking us through the first part of the ride. You didn't get on the ship that takes you off planet. There must have been a malfunction, and because of the number of people in the park, they were having to make compromises. So as you can see here, they took us through a corridor, and magically it seemed to transport us directly into the Stormtrooper room on the Star Destroyer. So it was just something interesting, a little bonus, and I'm led to believe that that's the corridor that you get taken down if you need to use the bathroom while you're on the ride. That's about one of the only ways that you can sort of like get out part way through the ride. So there's a number of live shows that happen at Hollywood Studios, and I only really caught one of them, but what a show it was. It's the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, and it's got all manner of stunts performed live with a lot of practical effects and pyro effects, and is really good fun to watch. I'd really recommend really recommend doing that. Gives you a nice little sit down in the afternoon. And the other ride that I mentioned briefly was Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So this is kind of a controversial thing because it's on the site of what was the Great Movie Ride, which a lot of people have got very fond memories of. I never got to ride it. Obviously, this being my first time at Disney World, but my opinion of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, it was not the best use of trackless vehicle technology. It's got some amazing elements in it that I really was scratching my head about how they did it. How they make it look like they've blown a hole in a screen and you're walking into a cartoon world. But I felt that pretty much the ride itself wasn't really anything that hadn't been done by traditional sort of like on rails dark rides. So wasn't a big draw for me. I mean, how it was done really well, but I think they could have done so much more with the space and what they've done with it. That's my only real gripe about it. So that about wraps things up for the things I saw in Hollywood Studios, and I hope to see you again soon when I talk about the other parks. So until then, may the force be with you.